Right. Hey, we're on the Klloo. So, I thought we'd make it a gravy special, right? So, Talshare, the majority of cards are working. There's some slight interaction errors, so we can manually fix that. But this way, we can actually go over some pretty fun and interesting interactions, right? And really show off the cards. So, yeah, I have a little bit of setup. So, Energy Potion, Time Snap, Imperial Ledger, right? We'll discuss it. It probably won't see play, but generally speaking, Gravy Bones does actually have a decent chunk of action point generation. So potentially, right, just for the consistent gold, granted again, we'll probably get some sort of pirate hat that definitely outvalues Crown of Dominion and just that upstart gold for all three heroes. But nonetheless, right, we have a little bit more set up, so some more amulets for interaction fun, and then also we want to arsenal our trade in. So we'll set up our two amulets, set up our Sigil of Cycles, which I think is just fantastic, right? Again, hit a ally, beautiful. Set up your ally to play and your Watery Grave proc, right? Because it's a blue that enters. So yeah, Sigil of Cycles I would highly expect to see play, right? But then we can pass, arsenal the trade in, and let the shenanigans begin. So we'll take our 2 damage, right? So granted, a lot of this in its entirety is definitely unreasonable. So that's not the takeaway. The takeaway is just some of the card interactions that we're gonna look at, right? Not the whole turn shenanigan. So again, Sigil of Cycles enters the graveyard. We have to get rid of an ally. Beautiful. And straight away it's playable. That's fantastic. Now we also have Amulet of Ignition, which I think is decent enough, right? So it's a -1 to the next ability you activate. So abilities are equipment, right? Items or weapons, for instance. So anything on board that you activate, not cards you play from hand. So for instance, what we can do in this scenario, right? We can go Amulet of Ignition, and then we don't actually have to pop the gold straight away. We could do something like, for instance, Trade In, which then cycles another ally, gets us a card back, right? And we still haven't used up the Amulet of Ignition proc because we haven't activated ability. Now, we could also Amulet of Service, although this will eat the charge, so keep that in mind. But generally speaking, it seems easy enough to start your turn with 4 cards in hand, because another aspect of Gravy Bones is if we have allies on board, we can use Amulet of Service with those allies to just make a bit more pressure, right? A 1 for 6, right? If we can get that resource, say Tunic, that also then pressures the ability to banish top card of our deck, and then if it's an attack action card, play it. That's worthy of your opponent blocking. So again, taking that 1 for 6, right, and making it something your opponent has to block is definitely value in my mind, right? So we can proc it, it'll hit our Rifting, which is another card we want to show off, but we do lose that Amulet of Ignition charge. Granted, though, I should be fine resource-wise. I'm pretty sure I've mapped this all out perfectly. Right, so from there, we can start going into some of our other shenanigans. So Chart the High Seas is definitely a big one, right? So Chart the High Seas allows us to basically discard a card by way of an ally, or get into the graveyard, that's the correct term, right? So get the ally into the graveyard, beautiful. And then also pitch a blue. So we have an interaction with back alley break line, right? And that's actually why I have the Zealous Beating. So you pitch is a zone, right? So this should work. For instance, Call the Grave with back alley works. Even Chart with a yellow back the alley, right? Or even if we were to put this in the graveyard, would also gain us the action point. So the nice thing about this is it's now get 3 resources, technically get an action point, so we'll do that manually, and get another minion into the graveyard. So far, we have 3 resources floating, we have 4 cards playable from other zones, and still a 3-card hand. That is pretty nuts to me when it comes to Gravy Bones. But we can continue, right? So I'm just going to cycle through all 3 charts. So another Rigor Mortis, another back alley, so we'll have to manually do the action points, right? And then 1 more. This will be 2 back alleys for the graveyard. Well, 1 for the graveyard, 1 for the pitch. Which we'll see, right? The yellow will actually work, but the blue doesn't, so we'll just do that manually, right? And then we can go gold, might as well just draw the rest. Beautiful. So now it's just about how do we squeeze the value out of this turn. We have 5 action points. We have a few other ways to also gain go again. So for instance, Rifting. If this hits, you may play your next non-attack action card this turn as though it were an instant. Well, we are playing a non-attack action card by way of our allies, right? They're just actions. So they become an instant with Compass proc, they get go again, which basically means we get an action point back. So easy enough, we can crack our Hardened Cross Trap, we can play our Rifting, swing for another 6, beautiful, and then we have plenty of action points, and then we can play one of our allies. Again, doesn't quite work because it doesn't recognize them from the graveyard as actions, or it might recognize them as attack actions because they have attack on it. I don't know, right? That's Talasha's backend, but technically we should have got an action point off that. So right now, 1 ally on board, 5 action points, and 3 more playable. Yeah, that seems quite lovely. So why don't we just, I don't know, crank a little bit more gold, for instance, right? So we could buff with money where your mouth is, nice and easy. Pitch, we could throw in the gold-baited hook, and all of a sudden our Rigor Mortis is swinging for 9 and can generate 2 gold, right? That's decent value, and we've already thrown out a 4 and a 6 as well. So we now have 2 more gold, we might as well draw another card, right? And then we can Gravy Bones for the other one, just so I can get one last ally into the graveyard. So, yeah, in terms of an overall turn, I think this has gone quite smoothly, right? We have Mage Master Boot, which then gives go again to one of our allies, right? So just throw out another Rigor Mortis, maintain 5 action points, and then we might as well dump the rest, right? So just pitch, play, pitch. Well, I don't have to pitch for that one. And 3 more resources. So 1 floating, so that'd be 1 swing, but I do have the Angie Potion, so we do have 3 swings left, right? And 2 action points, plus the Flying High. So that is beautiful. So we can play the Flying High, right? All these are yellows, so it does get the +1. So a 7 with go again. Right, into another 6 with go again, into just finally a 6, right? So I gotta say that's a pretty nice turn overall. I could time snap, but I don't have the extra resource, right? If we had that extra resource from the ignition, we could have thrown out another 6, but yeah, setting up, what is it, 3 allies, right? That, again, just beat sticks of 1 for 6 value. Setting up 2 allies that can prevent 2 damage a turn. That's fairly decent. We have the Imperial Ledger, which, actually, why? No. I think, yeah. In testing, Mage Master Boots on Talasha apparently give the card continuous go again. What's the actual wording? The next no-attack action card you play this turn gains go again. Does it reset? Right? Because you still control the card, so the card still has go again. Clarify some of these interactions for me, because this is definitely getting to shenanigan territory more so than what I generally play around with, right? But yeah, overall, there are a lot of interactions, and again, a lot of ways to cheat action points. Back alley break line just seems absolutely fantastic with Chart the High Seas, right? It's just so beautiful. Get resources, get gold, plus an action point. That is fantastic. Trade in, again, just something you can stick in your arsenal. If you can land that, go again, and a discard, beautiful, right? Probably the blue variant, so again, it activates your Watery Grave. Cycles, just supreme value, throw it out, right? Has go again, doesn't impede your turn in any way, and then it just kickstart your turn, right? Making sure, again, you can play allies. So as long as we get a nice chunk of them, which I would expect at least 3 more, so that'd be, 6 by 3, right? So 18 allies in total. I think he can definitely throw them out quite quickly, right? And then again, Imperial Ledger. It's an extra gold, which then jumpstarts your turn. So if you do have the action points, I could see it being fed into something like that, right? The consistency of gold, but again, most likely Crown doesn't actually see play, right? Although, who needs the gold most, I think, is jumpstarting. I think they all kind of do. Well, Marlin probably the least, right? Gravy Bones for, kickstarting, getting the allies into your graveyard, right? If you miss some of your discard. Again, you've got, how many outs do we have? We have trade in, if you really have to, right? If we don't get any dedicated support, which we probably will. Chart the High Seas, Sigil of Cycles, and then Call of the Grave. So, yeah, that's a lot of get stuff into the graveyard. Call of the Grave being the standout one that's actually fetched from your deck, right? But there we go. Some Gravy Bones shenanigans. Let's see, how much damage do we push, right? I think it would be about 30... Can I do quick math? No, I can't actually remember. 30-something, I feel, right? 31. Beautiful. Is that correct? What was it? It was 9. So Rifting was a 6. Trade-in was a 3, so that's 9, 12, and then 4 6s? So it should be 36. I wonder what didn't count. Unless I've miscounted. Plus the Flying High. Anyway, still, 31 damage and a whole string of allies set up on board. Yeah, again, just being able to throw out 2 a turn is already kind of disgusting, right? 1 tanky, 1 utility, 1 beat stick of just a 1 for 6, essentially akin to a weapon. That's pretty decent value. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think. See ya.